All right, Instagram always lags a little bit. I'm gonna get that process going faster. There it goes. All right. All right, how's it going, everyone? How's everybody's week? Midway through, I have a funny story. This was, I blew this one. Well, I don't know if I blew it, actually. I'll let you guys decide. So I get a text from Tim Gavin. And Tim Gavin calls me or shoots me a text maybe 2.5 weeks ago. And he goes, hey, you want to do an interview? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. He's like, I have a new partnership. He's telling me all about it. And I'm like, yeah. Like, when do you want to do it? He goes, this week. Well, I was heading out of town. So I told him I'd reach out when I got back and then we'll schedule it, right? So he hits me up, I don't know, last week, maybe Friday. And he goes, you down for this interview? And I'm like, yeah, 100%. And he goes, okay, cool. Can we do it at one of my listings? I'm like, yeah. So we get it scheduled, and Tim has a new partner, Donovan, and he sends me the address. We get a time, right? So I leave the office. I'm heading there today. It's about, let me try to get this thing right. There we go. It's about 30 minutes from my office. So I get there, super cool house, brand new renovation, nice. I walk in, and it's Tim and Donovan. They're like, what's up? I'm like, hey, what's going on? And they look at me and they go, it's just you? And I'm like, yeah, it's just me. Like, oh, okay. And I didn't think anything of it when they said that. So we're talking, I had just met Donovan, so I'm getting to know him and talking to Tim, getting, caught up. They're talking about just business and our company, et cetera. And I said something, and Tim looks at me and goes, dang, maybe we should be interviewing you. And I kind of laughed, and then 2 seconds later, I looked at him, and I'm like, what did you just say? And he goes, oh, I mean, just like everything you're doing, like maybe we should interview you. And I was like, maybe you should interview me. I was like, Tim, what's supposed to happen today? And he's like, what do you mean? And I was like, when you texted me, do I want to do an interview? What did you have in mind? And he was like, like you guys did an interview. I don't know. We did an interview with Tim a year ago. So we brought out our camera crew and kind of highlighted him. And he goes, I don't know, film something like we did last time. And I was like, was I filming? Like, was my film crew? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, oh, well, that's not going to work. Dude, I thought you guys were doing an interview on me, like you had the new partnership and you want to do like this whole series. I don't have a film crew with me. I holy crap. So it was just like we all started laughing. We're going to do it again though. We're going to try to schedule it for next week. But it was just so funny. Like as it was playing out, he just kind of said a couple things and I went, oh my gosh, you're just here by yourself? That's because he was expecting the film crew with me. So that happened today. It was good catching up with him. If anybody who doesn't know Tim Gavin, actually, I've got a lot of good stories about Tim. Tim Gavin was a professional skater when I was a kid. He was on Girl. For anyone who follows me that's not a skater, Girl Skateboards was the first. They had a video that came out called Mouse. It was the first skate video I saw. I was absolutely in love with Girl. They were the best. Tim Gavin was a pro back then. Tim Gavin ended up starting a shoe company called DVS with a couple guys. And they started Maddox, and then he was a part of Lakai, et cetera. Well, Tim Gavin was the president of the company when I rode for DVS as a kid. He actually, my first shoe that I ever got was DVS. And Tim Gavin, when was this? If I rode for Etnies in 2007 or so? Is that when I rode for? No, I rode for Etnies a little bit later. So probably, let's call it 2008, sometime around then. I no, you know what? Now I'm getting my years mixed up. Anyway, when I got my first shoe, it was kind of my first experience with like the business side of skateboarding, having to work with designers to build out the product, getting samples and, figuring out, the marketing behind it. It was the first time I was involved in anything like that. And I loved it. Like I had so much fun with it. And I set up a meeting with Gavin asking him if I could be more involved with the company, like beyond just me riding for them as a skateboarder. Like, could I be involved in the design element, like something with marketing? Like I enjoyed it and wanted more. And Gavin looked at me like I was crazy. He's like, what are you talking about? Like, just focus on skating. Like skating is that's what you should be focusing on. That's like what you're doing. That's like just there. And when I heard it, I didn't know. I didn't know what he meant by it. Like all I heard was, Gavin won't let me do what I want to do. Okay, well maybe this is the end of DVS for me. I was just young and didn't totally understand what he was saying. And so I ended up quitting DVS to ride for Etnies, and I was friends with Heath Brinkley, who basically came on to rebuild Etnies. And he knew I wanted to be more than, just a skateboarder. And so he gave me the opportunity to come in and help rebuild Etnies with him. If I wouldn't have ever done that, I don't think I would have ever started St. Archer. Like it was so interesting how it happened, right? Like I'm riding for DVS, I get a shoe, I start liking, product and sales, want more, can't get it there. Heath, opens the opportunity up at Etnies. I realize I don't know how to work with people, and I'm struggling with like wanting to get things done that aren't happening. Me being young and naive again. I think it's due to the company looking at me as a skater. And I remember working on samples and just getting frustrated that the shoe wasn't there. And I didn't know how to talk to people back then. I didn't know how to encourage people. My business skills and team kind of leadership was weak. And so all I heard when basically I couldn't get things done was, at least how I heard it was, you're just a skater. You will always just be a skater to these people. The only way that you're going to be able to do anything you want, this is me speaking to myself, is starting my own business. And that's what was really behind me wanting to start something so bad, which ended up being St. Archer. And then, since St. Archer, I think I've started like 10 different companies. I've learned a lot along the way. That's when I realized, looking back at Etnies, I had no clue what I was doing. But without Tim Gavin saying that, I don't know if that ever would have happened. And that's not to highlight Tim in a bad way. What he was saying was actually accurate. It was, put your energy towards the thing that can result in the highest return. It's what your calling is. It's what you're passionate about. Drive there hard. And I think his concern was, if I start doing other things, I'm going to dilute the biggest opportunity, and that's something like what we always say about, investing in yourself. That's a huge factor. But that was huge for me. Gavin's been a great friend of mine. It's been 20 something years. He's phenomenal. When he went into the real estate industry, that was something that I watched him going from skateboarder to, owning a shoe brand in the skate industry, to then moving into selling real estate, to then being like one of the most successful real estate brokers out there. It was inspirational. So I got to hang out with him today. We blew it on the miscommunication, but that was today. Also, I'm working on this new concept. I want to get your guys' opinion. I know I've talked about this loosely, but over the last few weeks, I was getting a lot of questions on the lives about basically, creating content around raising money, raising capital. And so this is what I think I'm landing on. I started filming one today. I'm going to do like a day 1 of, day 2 of, and basically bring everyone into what I'm doing day to day raising money, kind of like a behind the curtains thing. So I've got to film a handful of them and show them to our council just to make sure from a SEC standpoint we're in compliance and all that. But I think it's going to be cool. Like I'm going to kind of go through the whole thing, like not just how you pitch an investment, but everything that goes into it. You know, all of the modeling, the investment summary, what compliance looks like, what you can and can't say, how marketing is tied to that, the reality of just sales in general, that it is way more no's than yeses. And when it's an investment, how challenging that is just up here. And I'm going to go through all of that. So that's going to be the next concept. I actually got a really cool, I want to make sure I'm not missing any questions. I got a really cool presentation that I'm going to add into it. I'll kind of give you guys, I hope you guys are able to see it, but this is going to be one of the new projects that we're going to do. I'll show you some of the renderings. They look epic, but like, look, doesn't that look cool? Let's make sure you guys can see that. Isn't that a cool rendering? So we've got a handful of projects in our new fund. This is the California Fund. Here's some crazy numbers. You guys ready for this? So our new fund is the California Fund. We are buying. We're trying to buy distressed assets. Sometimes it's just an asset that's not multifamily that we can redevelop into multifamily. Our whole premise is California is undersupplied, like severely, severely undersupplied. Here's the crazy numbers, right? We are short 2 million units, residential units. That's what we need right now. And when you consider population growth, what kind of Newsom came out and said, we need 3.5 million units by 2025, right? Right now, we are averaging 104,000 units per year. That's the average of what we're putting online. Well, if nothing changes, we're doing business like we are right now. We're not going to hit 3.5 million units until like almost 2090, the year 2090. Then you go through the metrics and look at what it looks like to speed things up, right? What if we increase the amount that we need to build by 50%? Well, we're not going to hit the 3.5 million until year 2050. Then we look at what happens if we have to increase the build by 100%, right? We're building 100% more than we're building right now, or at least from an average annual standpoint. We won't hit that 3.5 million until like 2039. It's just craziness. And then you add everything going on with the market, with debt, the debt pullback, banks not having the liquidity to lend, construction is slowing down. I think we're going to be in this situation for a long, long time. What does that mean? That means real estate becomes too expensive. That means most people don't own it. And I think California and New York are going to be the first examples of it. And then I think you're just going to see it bleed outward if we don't build more. So we'll see. I mean, if we're talking about solving the problem, because there's two aspects here, right? Like, I'm an investor. I look at it from the investment lens. Like, if we're going to invest in something, is there demand for that product? What's the risk and what's the potential return? Well, from a living here and then being on city council, I'm looking at it through a different lens. It's how do we get the price of real estate to maybe get back to reality? Maybe that's the best way to say it. And the only way to do that, in my perspective, is build, build, build. And if we're going to build like that, you're talking deregulation. You're talking about, speeding up the process so that when somebody buys something and goes through the process of building, it doesn't take 3 years of entitlements and permits and then 2 years to build it. You can get this thing started at least within 6 months. That would be huge for this. So that's the concept of the fund. That's what I'm going to do all the content around for that offering. But yeah, it's interesting. All right, I'll go to some questions. What's going on, everybody? How was the week? Anything good happening? Watch out for the government. Watch out for the government is listening. Young Mike Who. This is the thing that's interesting. This is the thing that the government needs to hear. The government needs to hear the issue. They need to hear the problem because something like real estate, like where politicians. How could I say this? Let me make sure I say this correctly. When politicians start hearing a lot of people saying the same thing, they get concerned. They definitely get worried because a politician wants to stay in office. They want to get reelected. So when there's fear that that's not going to happen, you see them start acting. And affordable housing, and I'm not talking about the subsidized component of it. I'm just saying blanket statement, housing not being affordable and people leaving California to find other options that are cheaper. I think that's something that the government listens to. Now, I would say proof of that is everything the state's doing to allow building or zoning change, but they're doing it with single family. Like if you notice, ADUs are going crazy right now. You can, I think, by right turn a single family residence into a quadplex. In San Diego, there's it's not just San Diego. There's things that they're allowing throughout the state with basically no parking. Like, if you're building an apartment close to public transit, you get density bonuses and don't have to do all the parking. It feels like the state is doing something, or maybe better said, it feels like the state is recognizing the problem. I think they're doing it differently than I would, but I think that depends on your view of government, right? Like if you feel like government, if you feel like problems need to be solved by the government, then you probably lean more towards subsidized housing and government basically taking over certain things that the private market does. If your view is the government is slow at doing things, it always costs them more, and it ends up resulting in a worse experience for the consumer, or in this case, the tenant, then you create incentive and open it up and let the private market do its thing. So I guess it depends on where you land on that. But no, I think the government needs to hear this one. It's like, this is an issue. It's a massive issue. Can you talk about sales, negotiation, human nature, and money, please? Alejandro, yes. Okay. When it comes to, there's a lot here. Let's start with sales. And sales isn't my, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a strong skill set of me. I understand sales, but I'm not like a Grant Cardone. I'm not like somebody who just is just spewing out this ability to sell. How I go about selling, I'm not over aggressive. I tend to, first listen. I think that's a huge part of sales. Like if I'm going to sell something, I let the person I'm talking to speak, right? I'll ask questions and I just want to hear, because I'm trying to figure out a framework of, who they are, what their views are, and what they're looking for. And then I'll start kind of presenting what I'm doing. And I tend to like it in the sales process, I tend to talk more about macro and the thesis and how I think it adds value to them. I typically try to stay out of a lot of the analytical part of it for a long amount of time. What I mean by that is when you're selling an investment, it's real easy to get basically stuck in the numbers. And what you need to be mindful of is when you start going too heavily numbers, people lose interest and stop paying attention. So you're trying to balance this concept of, maintaining attention, giving enough detail, but not basically going overboard into the weeds that you lose them. When it comes to sales, though, it's interesting. I don't like the pushy tactics. Like a lot of the create FOMO and fear of missing out and prices going up tomorrow, and a lot of the old school tactics. I think everybody knows what you're doing, and I think it comes off as fake and untrustworthy personally. So I tend to not follow that suit. I basically just, hey, this is what I'm doing. I listen to your needs. I kind of hit you with it. And if you're about it and it lines up, let's do it. If not, all good. And I move on to the next. Now, am I losing out on maybe people if you're looking at a numbers standpoint? Yeah, maybe. But I don't like when people are pushy with me, so I tend to not be pushy with them. When it comes to negotiations, there's a phenomenal book called Never Split the Difference. It's a really, really good book. Chris Voss, I think is his name. Chris Voss wrote it. Read that book. He goes over so many, I guess, tactics that you should use when negotiating. He talks about mirroring the person in front of you. This is actually a sales tactic as well, that you're trying to match the person's tone and kind of how they communicate because they find comfort and trust in that. That's a big part when it comes to negotiating. Listening is a big part. Framing is a big part. There's two tactics you can take. Like if you're talking about negotiating deals, I think it's obvious when people, throw a crazy high price, so that you land on a low and you meet somewhere in the middle. I tend to kind of move through all of that. I usually go towards like straight for the offer. Look, this is what I get. This is what I have to offer. I'm telling you right now, this is my last and final. I just want to do you a solid and basically tell you this is what I have. Let's get the deal done. But I don't have any other room. Like I tend to try to put it in their court. That's usually the stance I take, for better or for worse. Human nature and money, that's the crazy one. My belief of human nature, I think if you leave us to, if we just do the things we want to do and let human nature just run its course, I think we end up doing some bad stuff that's pretty damaging. I think when it comes to human nature, I think the guardrails or there's certain rules to follow that lead towards a much better life than us just doing everything we feel. Money is this just the, how would you say this? Money is a form or a test to that, right? Like money, I think, is a highlighter. I think money magnifies who you already are. And so if you struggle with greed and you get some money, that greed is going to come out tenfold. If you're insecure and you get money, it's going to increase. But I think the same is true on the giving side. Like if you're naturally a giver and you start making more money, you're going to give more. So I think the human behavior part though, like without the guardrails, I think we naturally go towards greed, And if you don't have that under control, you end up being a pretty poor example of the stewardship of money or managing money correctly. And then I think you start living a pretty shallow life. So I don't think money in itself is anything. I just think it highlights who we are, Would you move to California if you weren't born there? Why? Good question. Well, if I was younger and I was skating and I wasn't from California, I'd probably move out to California for the skating because there's nothing like it. And the majority of the industry's here, all the filmers are here, all the photographers are here. So I think there's a very strong argument that if you're trying to compete in anything, you should go to where the competition is happening and be competitive in it. If it wasn't for skating though, I don't know if I would. That's a good question. Look, I think the weather is I don't think there's anywhere even close to the weather. That's an easy one. I think the beaches, like I like that environment. It's expensive as all hell. It's not the best place to create a business anymore. I don't know. That's a good question. I'd have to think about that one. Really, really good question. All right, let me get caught up on some questions. Are you pushing the city of Thousand Oaks to remove remote work? No. No. It's interesting because I'm not the CEO of Thousand Oaks. I'm a council member. I'm not the city manager. I'm not the boss of the staff. And so I don't get involved in it. I think our city manager, his name's Drew Powers, is phenomenal. I think he's top 10 city managers in the entire nation. He's unreal. And so I don't tell him how to manage people. He knows how to do that and he does it well. So no. Now my view of remote work, for my company, and my personality, I'm not good with remote work. There's a handful of jobs that I think in our company can do remote work well, but from the culture aspect of it, I don't know how it works. Like, I don't know how to maintain the culture and make this company something that's purpose driven and fun and an environment that people want to show up to work for. I don't know how to do that through the hybrid model. That's one. Two, I don't totally know how to justify people that I need to be in the office. Like, their job is just, it's not set up for remote work, and making them come in every day and not making people whose jobs don't necessarily have to be in office. I think that's a tough dynamic. And in going back to the culture, I'm not sure how to build a solid team with that conflict. So I think that's hard as well. And then just my personality, like, I'm a people person. Like, I like being around people. I drive off people. I believe that one of my skill sets is, excuse me. I believe that one of my skill sets is when I'm around people, I have an ability to get people stoked and fired up and excited about what we're doing. And there's a certain energy that I have that I can basically push on to the group in a positive way when they're in person. And so without that, I don't know. I just, the hybrid model is not necessarily built for me. So that's how I run my business. For anyone else, like, if they have a business and the hybrid model works for them, that's what they should do. 100% agree. So I think you find what's best for you. And then as an employee, like, work for a company that fits what you're looking for. Look for a boss that fits, what your goals are. I may not be that. Like, and that's totally okay. Maybe for some people it's a good fit. So that's how I would justify that. But no, I'm not doing that for the city at all. All right, let's see. Where do you live and where are you from? This is from Jay Skate. I live in Thousand Oaks, and this is basically where I'm from. I grew up in a city called Oak Park. I lived there until my parents moved to Newbury Park. I went to Newbury Park High School, started my freshman year there, and then I've been there ever since. Bought my first house here when I was skating. I was still here. I would go out to LA every day, but this is basically born and raised, Ventura County. I'd work for you. Charles, I appreciate that. Look, I think, like, or I hope that our team and everyone that works with us is stoked to be a part of it. I think what we're doing is exciting. It's hard and challenging, which I love. And I think, everybody has a good time together. Let me shadow you for minimum wage. I'll be your slave. Ben Croker, you know what? There's going to be some opportunities coming up. I would say probably Q1 of next year, there's going to be some opportunities to bring some people in. We just went through a few hires. We may make one more this year, and then I think next year we're gonna be opened up. I love that you've answered that question. We used to skate together, a few times. Thanks for always being yourself. Miss you, brother. I appreciate you, legend. Thank you. How did you become financially free? All right. I'll give you my whole playbook, and it has changed throughout the years. When I first started this journey, I was 19 years old. I wasn't making a lot of money, and I was doing more of the, let's call it, conventional stuff. I was investing in a Roth IRA. I think I had a SEP IRA at that point. I was investing in stocks, in funds. I was investing in bonds. That was probably it. It was probably stocks, bonds, and maybe I had some in my savings, like very, very conventional. What I did for the first decade, I was maybe it changed drastically after a decade, but what I was doing in the beginning was basically just trying to live off as little percentage of what I was making as I possibly could. And what that looked like I probably went 5 years, first 5 years as a pro skateboarder, 2022. Yeah, about 5 years. I was making, I don't know, anywhere from 40 to 75 grand a year, 80 grand a year. And then I started making about 100 grand. And I was trying to live off nothing, right? There was a point, the first 5 years is where I really did damage. I had a cell phone bill. I had my car I paid off, but I had insurance and I was paying for gas and food, right? That was it. Living at my parents', stacking cash. That was like a huge one for me. And all I was trying to do was max out my Roth, put money in retirement plans, put money in the stock market. I was just trying to maximize that until I had enough money to start investing in real estate. And what I started investing in storage units, and I started investing in a lending fund, which was lending on commercial real estate and paying me a dividend off the interest they were charging. Those are my first two real estate investments. I didn't do them actively. I was investing in groups that were doing this. Where it all changed is when I started my first business. When I started my first business, it was a craft brewery. It was called St. Archer. We didn't have enough money to start it ourselves, so we went out and raised money from investors. Those investors just happened to be friends and family. So I, pitched my parents, my in-laws, my aunt and uncle, all my skater friends. My partner Josh was pitching surfing friends, snowboarding friends. That was basically how we raised money. We started that business. We did really well with it. We ended up selling it to Molson Coors. Our investors made a ton of money, and myself and Josh and Paul, who were my partners, we made a ton of money as well. And after that, my strategy changed a little bit. What do I mean by that? I started putting a lot more money into myself and the businesses that I was creating. The next one was Commune Capital. It's the business I run now. I put a lot of money into this one to start. I didn't have to raise money from investors to start this company, but that meant it took more capital of mine to start. I have more cash available now than I did prior. That's mainly because of the entrepreneur side. If I'm going to start a business, I want cash available. In this case, with my current business, I want to make sure there's cash available in case myself and my partners end up reinvesting in our company for more growth. I hold a lot more real estate now. My portfolio is probably really off balanced. If you look at the assets I own that are tangible or real estate versus stocks and bonds. And then I invest in some startups. But there's nothing that special about it. If you look at my portfolio, it's probably 75% of my net worth is real estate. Gosh, I got to look at what I have in the stock market. And then I was probably sitting on 10% cash. So it's my portfolio has become really basic, but that's a long way of answering the question, which is discipline. Discipline did it for me. What was huge was paying myself first. So, in that scenario, let's say I was making 100 grand a year. I was trying to live off, let's say 25%, right? I was really living off nothing. That's what I was getting, right? The rest was going into investing, and I didn't even touch the money. It went into a separate account, and I was trying to invest at least what my goal of investing was per month, every single month. And I was just trying to do that over and over and over. And then eventually that amount becomes pretty significant. Like I remember, in the beginning, it didn't seem like much. And then I was like, holy crap, I've got 100 grand invested. And I was like, dude, I've got 200 grand invested. And then when I started getting close to my first million, that's when I was like, holy crap, I'm going to have saved and invested my way to $1 million. It's crazy. And then when we sold St. Archer, it was like, that I skipped a lot of numbers there. And then now it's just more of the same. I focus on building my business. I invest in startups. And then, my view of retirement plans have changed a little bit, actually. I don't put as much into IRAs anymore. Not because I don't like them. It's just what I'm doing now, I get a different type of tax efficiency. And I'm not sure my tax basis is going to be that much lower in my 60s. So, it's just interesting. It's just changed. What business do you think is going to last long? That's a good question. There's a lot changing when it comes to AI. I think there's going to be a lot that's impacted. Look, what industries do I think are going to last long? That's a good question. I think real estate's going to be here a long time. You know what? Actually, I don't know if that's necessarily the right question to ask. I think there's always value to be added, right? Like if we look at what the needs of people are in the moment, I would build a business off that, and I would build it and grow it and sell it, and then do it again and do it again. If you know how to build a business and you build one business right the first time, you can replicate that over and over. It's hard building a business, but I think it's very empowering when you do it because it can be you can replicate it over and over, and then you could be pretty quick on like capturing new opportunity. So thank you for answering the question. I'm 16 and I'm learning to invest in the world of money and business. Owen, that's amazing. Look, I wasn't doing this at 16 at all. So you're getting a big head start. I have a hard time finding buyers for my real estate business. Do you have any advice on where I could look? Yeah, you need to, well, look, I don't sell real estate. So I want to be transparent about that one. For my friends that do sell real estate, they are marketing like crazy. They got signs on the corners. They're door knocking. They're doing, digital marketing. They're doing SEO. They're going savage on getting their name out there. They're at all the meetups. You probably need to do all of that. I would say find somebody who's doing it, 10x your level, and start tracking what they're doing. Do they have a social media? How often are they posting? Are they at the networking events? Are they door knocking? That's one. Look, Kevion's a big real estate guy. He still door knocks. Like, you're talking about success. This guy has been making multiple millions per year over and over and over and over. He still door knocks. So I would say don't have an ego, humble yourself, and do what you need to do to get everyone to know who you are. And I would say own a market. That's around here, Shane Holmes. He's the Westlake guy. Everyone knows who he is because he's everywhere. So that's the thing. Just grab attention. Yo, this is Mikey Days. What's up, my man? I appreciate you. Social media management. That's going to be a big one. Yeah, I think social media management is going to be here a long time. What's the division from multifamily, storage, commercial, single family in your real estate portfolio? Okay, so we have a lot of portfolios now. We have portfolios that are specific to multifamily. We have portfolios that are specific to storage. And then we have portfolios. We have one portfolio now that's a cash flow fund. And it's primarily lending right now, and that's split between multifamily, storage, and residential. But for all the other ones, there's no, like, we won't do, we're not doing storage and multifamily in the same equity fund. It's, this fund is for multifamily. Our current fund, for example, we're going after 4 projects in California. We have them, let's see, 1, 2, 3. We have them all but one under contract. The last one's basically there, but we're pretty specific on what we're doing, the type of real estate, how we're building it out, the product we're looking for that we redevelop into. So it's actually pretty specific. Are they? Do you have something on the right side of your face chin? I don't know. Do I? Oh. Yes, actually. Wait, hang on. Let me see if I could see it. Is it right here? Yeah, I have like a sunspot that just popped up. If that's what you're talking about. I have like a sunspot. What side is it? Yeah, this side right here. Is this what we're talking about? Sunspot. Yeah, I don't know. I'm getting old. What's the most common use for storage units from what you see? Common use is... We have companies that have like business equipment, like audio video companies will store equipment in there. people that are going through a change. Maybe they sold a house and they're moving into something, but it's, not happening for a year. Change, like anytime there's change, or I would say, like my wife and I, like we kind of ran into this. We moved into a new house and the storage wasn't the same as the other house. Like bigger house, way more space, way less storage. And so I think a lot of people make the decision, am I going to get rid of things and go more minimal? Or, does some of the stuff I own have sentimental value? And do I want to store it somewhere? And I think for most Americans, it's the latter. They want to store it places. Thanks for the advice. You're still one of my favorite skaters. Jordan, I appreciate you. How should one go about getting their first home? Okay. First thing you need to do, you need to get pre-approved. You got to find out what you can buy, how much you can afford. From there, you start going through the process of finding a good realtor. Actually, I just did a video on this, talking about good realtors. When you're looking for a realtor, so you got to figure out what you can afford. If you find something when you have a realtor, you need to be pre-approved or they're not going to take your offer seriously. But when you're looking for a realtor, here's kind of my view of it. One, I want somebody that's really honed in on one market, right? I want somebody who owns a market. Two, I'm going to be reaching out for a referral. Like I want to know somebody that worked with them. I want to get a good experience. One thing you want to think about or be mindful of is the person that's representing you should be here for what you want and your goals. And sometimes you'll see agents push a home that they'll push a home more than other homes. And a lot of times they're representing both sides. So they've got a financial interest to sell a home. If you start feeling like that, get rid of them. You really want somebody who's there for you and is completely unbiased to it. They're willing to say, nope, like, okay, keep looking, keep finding that right home. I think that's a really important one. But basically what the process looks like, you have your realtor, you get pre-approved, you start checking out homes, you tell them that you like one, they're gonna put in an offer, you guys are gonna figure out how you're gonna go about it, what the offer is gonna be. They're typically gonna be going back and forth with the agent that's representing the seller to find out where you need to land. If there's multiple offers, your agent is going to come back to you and you guys are going to talk about coming up or not. And then once you get it locked up, you get it in escrow, then the due diligence process and then the financing arm basically happens. I would say something right now you just want to be mindful of, make sure you can afford the house. What you get approved for doesn't necessarily mean what you should buy. Homes can be expensive, and at least my perspective, you don't want to be, what do they call it? House poor, right? Like all of your income is going, I mean, it's not going to be all, but you know what I'm saying? Like so much of your income is going towards home ownership that it feels like you can't do anything else. So just be mindful of that. Great insight. You need to find people who are in your corner to protect and advise you. Everybody on Instagram, Fairwell Mortgage, this is my guy. Brian is the man. If you are in the Ventura County area and you need help getting your financing, he's the guy to talk to. And he just nailed it. You need to find people who are in your corner to protect and advise you 1,000,000%. And he is, I will vouch for him. He is a phenomenal guy. Beyond trustworthy and works really hard. So anyone who's looking for it in this area, hit my guy up. Is there a way around having a 2-year work history to be approved for a first-time home buyer? Yeah, this one's interesting. It's more difficult. I actually just ran into this problem. We were looking for a place. Anybody who's been following me or on the lives for a while, we dealt with mold and we're scrambling to find something. Trying to put in offers, and I was struggling to get pre-approved for a loan because I didn't have W-2 income. I actually didn't have a lot of 1099 income. I had K-1, but what you saw was that there was a lot of loss. You guys have heard me talk about real estate a lot, But what's difficult about real estate, which is also a blessing, is you can make money and have money in your pocket, but it doesn't look like you're making money. And that becomes very challenging when it comes to getting financing. And so it's a little bit harder. I would say when you're talking to somebody who's helping you with your loan, a mortgage broker, tell them your situation. If it's 1099 income, or if you need to look into a DSCR loan, or somebody that will qualify you on just bank statements, that might be the option you have to take. You might have to pay more because of it, but it's a little bit more difficult. Even when I got my first house, my taxes were a lot different back then than they are now. My tax situation is so much more complex now. Back then, it was still hard for me to get a loan. I was running off 1099s and contracts with skate companies and lenders. It was hard. It was very difficult. I had a lot of people tell me yeah, you can't get a loan. I ended up getting one, but it wasn't easy. So you might have to just, when you're talking to people, be really upfront about your situation and see what your options are. My friend makes $150K a year after tax. Where to invest and how? So it's almost an impossible question to ask. And I get why you're asking it. Basically, the hard part about investing is we all have different goals and we all have different risk. We have a different risk tolerance. And because of that, it makes it very hard to say what somebody should invest in based off how much money they make. To answer the question, you'd have to know so much more about them. I guess for anybody listening, this is basically how you should go about this. If you're trying to figure out what to invest in, you really start with your short and long-term goals. What are you going to need money for in the next 5 years? For most people, a short-term goal in 5 years is buying a house. And in that, you typically don't want to lock money up. You don't even want to invest that money. That money is okay sitting in a high yield savings account because you're counting on that money in the short term, right? What you don't want is to put that money into the market 5 years from now, you need it and the market's crashed or significantly corrected and it's not a good time to pull out. You don't want to do that. You don't want to realize the loss. So for short-term goals, you don't want to invest the money. Long-term, I typically recommend as kind of a general rule of thumb, if it's long-term, look for retirement plans. Roth IRA, I tend to like if you can qualify for it. It's post-tax dollars. All of your gains are tax-free. For a 401k, if you have an employer that's going to match it, it's kind of nice. Putting in up to the match is 100% guaranteed return. Your contribution is tax deductible. So you can, there's some tax efficiency there on the front end. And then on the back end, as you withdraw it, the idea is you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. So when you're pulling the money out, you're not taxed as high. Anything beyond that, what a lot of people do, they look, for the stock market, they look, potentially bonds. And if you start getting into more tangibles, real estate comes into play. If you're getting into crypto or some of that stuff, just be mindful. It's high risk. So, my view on it, invest what you're okay losing. I think it's high risk. So that's where I'm at. So many nuances in broad questions asked. Clinton Sparks, I know that's the hard part about this. It is so nuanced and it's so specific. So I try to give as much information as I can, globally speaking, and also just with the how would I say this? Also including that, look into what specifically fits you. Do more of a deep dive when you're looking to invest into something. 511. All right, everybody see the U.S. credit rating downgraded today? Was it today or yesterday? Went from AAA to AA+. Thoughts on that? What was the last book you read? The last book I read was Never Split the Difference. Negotiating. Hang on one sec. All right. Let me just grab that phone real quick. That was the last book I read. It was really, really good. I would recommend it to anybody. In California, and have made all my money in home ownership, thinking to out 401k to buy something else in California. Thoughts? Haven't made a ton in 401k. Yeah, the 401k, I'm not a big fan of withdrawing from it. I'm not a big fan of the penalty and getting taxed at your current tax bracket. And then I would say, the stock markets, I mean, if you're looking over like historically, it's performed like pretty well. So I guess that maybe I would look into your 401k, look what you're investing in, and make sure it's set up set up to invest in. Look into what you're investing in. I think that might give you some more context, but I would be hesitant just because of the fees and your current tax bracket if it's higher or high right now. In your personal real estate investments, what's the percentage allocated between multifamily, storage, commercial, single family? Like 50% multifamily, 30% storage. Really, really good question. I'm kind of just guessing off the top of my head because I haven't looked at the specific allocations to each. It's the most storage. Second is multifamily. That's not a function of liking storage over multifamily. It's because I started investing in storage earlier, and the storage that I've invested in has done really well. I'm still invested into it. So I'm going to have the largest holding in storage, the next largest in multifamily. Those are the only two commercial assets I invest in real estate. And then I do not invest in single family. So it's going to be multifamily, storage are the two. Storage heavy right now. Things to look out for when taking over family business. Ooh, this is a tough one. Do you have brothers and sisters, and are they running it with you? This is for NR Lopez. Let me know on that one, because that dynamic could be difficult. And who started did your parents start the business, or is it like it's been passed down? NR Lopez, I'm looking for your comment just because I think that's, yes, sir. Okay, so family business is tough. It's really difficult. If your parents are running it, 15 years running. Oh, are you, NR Lopez, are you running the company now? Are you running it with siblings? Are your parents still involved? Give me a little bit more context, because I think I got some good ones, because it's not easy. Running a family business is tough. I'll cover another question, and then I'll come back to you on that one. With you being in real estate, have I ever heard of creative financing? Of course. Yeah, creative financing. I mean, Pace is hot on the subject to financing right now. Yeah, you can definitely get creative. We've done a couple. We've got pretty creative on a couple projects. For us, if we can keep the seller in the deal, a lot of times we would prefer that. You're seeing a lot of seller financing right now just with what rates are doing. Okay, father is still involved, handing over to children as he retires. Okay, so here's the things to be mindful of. When your dad hands it over, there's going to be a period where it's going to be potentially uncomfortable, right? Your dad has run it his way for a long time. If he started it, it'll take some time being totally comfortable having you guys fully running it. The other part is retiring in general is hard. You get hit with something you get hit with an emotional aspect that most people don't prepare for, and you start struggling with identity and purpose. And so just be mindful that your dad may go through a time that it's difficult to be retired. And he might want to jump in and get involved just to feel like he's part of something again. So be mindful of that. When it comes to brothers and sisters, make sure that you guys are totally aligned on the vision and where this business is headed. If you guys have two different views, like let's say, just throwing it out there, you have a brother, both of you guys are running it, and you want to take it in one direction, he wants to take it in another, that can be pretty detrimental to a business, especially if you guys have equal ownership and one person doesn't have a controlling ability to drive it in one direction. If that's the case, and you guys are equal owners, you guys are doing it together, make sure you have a buy-sell agreement set up now so that if one of you wants to get out, you guys have a way to make that happen. I would say, when you're dealing with employees, some of the things that you would say to a brother or sister are not what you would say to a partner. Be mindful of that and not doing that in front of employees. Act like a brother and sister behind closed doors. When you're running a business, it's your job to build confidence in the people working with you and create a great place to work. And so just be mindful of that this is your partner. He's your brother, but he's your partner. And so treat him like that. But it's not easy. I would say boundaries are huge. Like make sure you guys have boundaries set up. And that's going to be big. Have you ever heard of anyone using life insurance as a way to do private money lending? And if you have, what are your thoughts on it? Yeah, the insurance world, I don't mess with. I take that back. I've seen two structures in the last 20 years that I thought were good. Other than those two, everything else I see is crap. I do not. The vast majority of insurance product that's built for investment is nice. It's crap. It's such big margins for the people selling it. It makes sense for them. I don't think it makes sense for 99% of the people they're selling it to. You start getting into mega wealth. Okay, I think there's an argument to be made then. But I am not even close to sold on investment as a product. I am not close to sold on insurance being an investment. Thank you. I grew up watching you skate, and now I love the financial advice. And our Lopez, congrats, my man. That's awesome. That's really, really cool taking that over. And I have partners that are siblings. And so, I see their dynamic, and what I found with them, the brotherly aspect is, you've known this person your whole life. Like you grew up with them, like you'll say stuff to them. We are really good about having those conversations as partners, not hashing it out in front of everyone else. I think that's a really important thing to maintain. All right. I'm going to get one more and then I've got to take off and go see the kids. If you were saving for a home, what would you do? Family of 5, not sure the best move. Okay. There's a handful of things. There's two things you can do, right? And it's going to sound simple, but these are the two things. You either make more or you spend less. Those are really the only two levers. It's my belief that it's easier to make money than save it. Like I think it's easier to go out and make an extra 10 grand than to save 10 grand. But that's more specific on what your career is. If you're in sales especially, it's definitely easier to go out and you have more control to drive your income up. As a W-2 employee, that's a little bit harder. Maybe you look into like a side hustle that you can do to make extra money and just don't spend it. I have a lot of friends. This is gnarly to do, but I do know a lot of people that moved back in with their parents for 6 months, 12 months, and didn't have a more rent payment. And so, I mean, dude, that amount will get significant, right? If you're in California, you're basically spending between $3,000 and $7,000 a month on rent. You don't do that for 12 months. Well, boom, you got a down payment. Now, family of 5, that's tough with kids. I would say, like if I was saving for a house and I'm not moving back in with my parents. First thing I would do is I would go over the budget. I would go over our spending. I would go over the stuff that we have to spend, the, non-negotiables. And then I go over the wants, the things that we're spending money on that we could cut. And I would look at cutting a certain percentage out so that I could save towards the house. If we're traveling, we're not traveling anymore. If we have budgeted, I don't know, $400 a month to eat out, we're not doing that. All meals at our house for the next year. If you have a car payment, look at selling the car, buying something in cash, having no car payment. Just finding ways to not spend as much and then not spending the excess money. It's not easy to do, but I think it's worth it. The other thing to be mindful of is there's a lot of programs out right now for first-time home buyers where you don't have to put that much down. So I think that's good. But yeah, you got to go through the saving part, and it's tough. It's not easy, that's for sure. Give the people what they want, Mikey. Give us some skateboarding footy. I know. Trey, I know it, man. I can do I'll go skate for maybe next week. I'm going to skate if I can. I'm dealing with a foot thing. I was in Mexico and stepped on a sea urchin or hit the coral or something. I had 30 spines in my foot. It still hurts. Like, dude, I just pulled one out. I thought I had them all out when I went to the doctor. Let me see if I could show you this photo if you guys are going to see it. This was last night I pulled this monster out. Okay, let's see if you guys can see it. Let me see where this is at. Okay, hang on. Can you guys see that? That's a freaking spike. Look at this. Pulled that thing out of my foot last night. And so it's still sore. So if this thing starts feeling better, I'll skate a little bit. But the days of a video part, that's gonna take some time. All right, I'm gonna go head back to the family. Have a great Wednesday. Have a phenomenal night. If you guys want to jump on